Fishful Thinker Television, brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, Peterson Toyota and Toyota Trucks, moving forward. Coldwell Banker, every day until it's sold. St. Croix Ride, best rides on earth. Evinrude, spend more time on the water. TC with the first beer. All right, what'd you get? Nice, all right. So we've been fishing all of 5 minutes. Troy caught his personal best largemouth. That's a good start right there. So folks, we want to welcome you to Fishful Thinker Television. We literally been fishing for 10 minutes. We're in a little tiny public pond in the middle of Kansas for some old school bass fishing. We got heavy cover, it's mid-spring, 63-degree water, got the bass master himself, Mr. Troy Coburn, as a guest on this show. This is gonna be fun. We just got started and he already crossed one's eyes, so get comfortable. We're gonna put some fish in the boat on this one. Woo, that's gonna be good. Fish.
That is a dig, that's a big one.
He might have had me wrapped. Actually, now that I say that, yeah, he had me wrapped up in there. Now you talk about fishing heavy cover. I got fooled by that one right there. Now I had 17-pound trilene fluorocarbon on there, trilene 100%, and that's just a little tyke. He ain't nothing to him, but he's a perfect little bass. He's let us know our pattern. 1's a fluke, 2's a theory, 3's a pattern. That's number 3, all on the jig. And we got a Berkeley gripper jig right here. If you look at that, I got a Berkeley gripper jig, peanut butter and jelly with a blue trailer on it. And that's because we got a real stain to the water. We've got less than probably a foot of visibility. And what that visibility does is it makes my darker lures easier for fish to find as opposed to some more natural colors. So on hardwood, adjacent to the channel, classic spring pattern right now. We've been fishing for 15 minutes in a lake we've never seen, never been to. And like I said, it is spring, 63-degree water, fishing very shallow water, lots of largemouth and shallow water. We got the heavy tackle out and getting after them and some of this shallow cover. This is good fun right here. Classic bass fishing right here in central Kansas. All right, so it goes like this. Troy and I have never been to this lake. We drove out to central Kansas. We wanted some classic fish right here. No, I don't think that was a fish. Okay, so Troy and I drove out to Kansas. We wanted some classic bass fishing. I mean, classic heavy-duty bass fishing. So we drove out here in the middle of Kansas in the middle of spring to a tiny little public pond, call it Lake X here in central Kansas. And how do we, given that we've never been here, there's not even a published map that I'm aware of for this lake. So how we decided to come and where to fish, we've got an inlet right here. We did a lap around the whole lake. We found that there's an inlet right here. It's got nice warm water in it. We got cattails and heavy cover all the way around us. So in the spring, we know fish are trying to move shallow. It's late April. We know there's bass that are trying to be real shallow, either on the spawn, pre-spawn, post-spawn, something real close to that. So we're coming around the inlet is a good place to start. We're keeping the boat in the channel and flipping to the shallow cover on the edges with heavy tackle. Very, very classic spring fishing. Now, as far as bait selections go, we tied on some classic power fishing type baits. When I say power fishing for bass, spinner baits. We both have a spinner bait tied on. We've both got a jig like this. I've got this Berkeley gripper jig tied on. We've got lipless crankbaits out and buzz baits as well. So we've got the variety of baits, all of which are kind of power fishing baits, and that's really what we're gonna put into play. If you're ever gonna power fish, it's stained water, springtime, this water temperature range. This is a classic time for power fishing. Now, we did have a big giant front that came through here yesterday, and that may slow our fish down just a touch, but overall, we've been fishing just a few minutes. We've already caught several fish, and we're working on establishing a pattern. Fish. Fish.
Good one.
Nice fish. Nice fish, Mr. Coburn. Here we go, right here. We'll bring him over here. Nice fish. Now, I want to tell you something. He spent a while working that piece of cover. He spent, easy, come here. Come here. Nice. There you go, buddy. Nice catch. Look at him peeing all over my boat. Point him that way. Good Lord. Now you got evidence that these fish are definitely spawning, because look at the belly on that thing. Oh my, Mr. Coburn, that's a beautiful fish. Let me see that thing. Let me show that thing to the camera. That's a gorgeous fish. Great catch. Look at the belly on that. Dude, that thing. It's nice, huh? Beautiful fish, absolutely gorgeous. Let's get her put back. Nice catch, Mr. Coburn, great catch. Put her back.
Go make some babies.
Now, again, how long have we been fishing? Let's talk about this for a minute. We've been fishing 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes, sure.
We've caught 4 already. 4?
That's number 4. That's number 4.
All right, now the whole deal is this, is focus on the really obvious piece of cover. We've got a channel right here, we've got heavy cover on it. He went for the jig, I went for the spinnerbait. He got 2 fish up on me in a hurry. I picked the jig up, caught fish right away, and he just caught another one. You knew, we knew, blue, dark colored baits. We knew heavy tackle. We looked at the water and said, man, this is a perfect situation for power fishing. We literally drove by this lake at 60 miles an hour and on a whim turned around and came back and said, hey, let's go hit that little lake. Never seen it before. Very basic stuff. Now we're out here with the power fishing tackle. This guy loves that stuff.
That's what I grew up doing.
Yeah, it's kind of a Missouri thing, a Texas thing, an Ozarks thing. And yet here we are in central Kansas. We're about 4 hours from Denver. Absolutely great way to learn your bass fishing skills right here. This is, we're just getting rolling. This is gonna be fun. I can tell you what, judging by that fish, that was a good fish.
Yes, sir.
Good catch.
Let's get on them.
Texas rig bait is probably one of the most common and popular and certainly most effective baits in all of bass fishing. But choosing the right hook for your Texas rig is maybe not as simple as it seems. For day in and day out, all around use, I prefer a standard wire wide gap hook like this one right here. The wire diameter is not too heavy such that the hook penetrates very easy, yet it's not too light that the hook will bend and come open if I really lean on a big fish. If I've got heavy duty super line like my favorite 50-pound braided fire line, then I use a super line hook like this. It's a similar wide gap shape, but the wire of this hook is roughly twice the diameter. The wire is less flexible, the hook won't penetrate quite as easy, but there's no chance you're gonna bend this hook open. Conversely, if I'm doing some finesse fishing with some very small soft plastics or something like that, I've got a very light wire straight shanked hook right here. This is better with like a 4-inch worm or some little small thin little finesse worm. All of these hooks have a slightly different application. They'll all catch you fish, but matching your hook to your application will catch you more fish. Some of the key things about presenting baits around heavy cover like this, when we're fishing right as tight as possible to the cover, one of the things that can be really important is to get your bait to slide into the water gracefully, quietly, as opposed to comes crashing down on top of the fish. We're both throwing 3/8 ounce jigs and they're fairly heavy, so you want them to hit as gently as possible into the water. Just kind of slide down into the water if you can. That's why you're gonna notice all the time we fish, we're gonna be doing all these little underhand casts like that. We will not be making big, long overhand throws. This bait is much more subtle if it just comes sliding in on an underhand. So one of the key things can be learning to pitch if you are going to fish heavy cover like this. I've got heavy line, I've got a heavy bait, I've got a relatively heavy rod, but I still want a stealthy presentation. Some of the other key things when it comes to locating fish, we've got so much cover around here that picking which spots to throw at can be a little bit tricky. And so I'm throwing for any of the stumps that are right adjacent to the deep water, but up on the flat. I'm throwing to any cross in the sticks, anywhere there's a matting of several sticks together. As a general rule, bigger wood's gonna be better than little wood, so bigger pieces of wood will be a better choice.
Oh, he's in there. See him flashing?
Yeah, he is. Oh, it's a big one too.
There, he got out.
Nicely done, Mr. Coburn. Another heavy cover fish. We can swing that one in here. Come on up in here. Nice.
There we go.
Nice. See why we brought you?
Another Le Femme.
Catch our fish. Yeah, another female. Got your black and blue jig there. Well done, man. Big fatty. Had it wrapped up in there. Now that's why we got the heavy. Now you've got a heavy or medium heavy rod?
This is a heavy, 7-foot St. Croix Legend Extreme heavy.
Heavy action. Yep. How heavy line you got?
That's 17-pound fluorocarbon.
17-pound fluorocarbon and a big old jig, and you got that one. Well done, man.
Very good.
This is classic old school bass fishing right here. You gonna give her a kiss too?
She's not quite big enough.
Oh, not big enough. You only kiss the big ones. All right, there you go. Put her back and let her go back to her business. Well done, man. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful, beautiful. So now we've been fishing for almost half an hour and I'm getting soundly schooled by Mr. Coburn right here. And the only difference in our two baits is the fact that he already had a rattle on his. So I took my jig and I put a rattle on it. Now a little chunk, I'm just gonna use a Berkley chigger chunk trailer right here, and we'll put that on the jig. We'll thread it on here nice and straight. Thread it all the way up underneath that rattle that I've added. Pull the skirt down nice and clean and stuff it up underneath there and get it to where it'll sit nice and straight on the jig. So now I end up with my jig with my big trailer, and it's a large profile. I mean, that's a big old Berkley gripper jig with a big old chunk on it right there. And I've added a rattle to it, so now hopefully with this real muddy water, the rattle will give them a good chance to hear the bait as well as see the bait and feel the bait enter the water. They can hear it as well. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a rattle in that bait, and because of that, that'll hopefully help them find it. The other thing I'm gonna do is, now that we've been here long enough to do a little bit of playing around and figure out that there's fish around here, is I'm gonna take one of these little power packs like this. It's got a black 6-inch Berkley power lizard in it. And I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna put it on another one of my St. Croix, and that one's got straight Berkley tracer braid on it. And I'm gonna tie one of these black lizards on right here on a little Texas rig. And we're gonna throw that around as well. And the biggest reason is only so I'm not throwing exactly the same thing that Troy's throwing. Troy's doing a fine job with his black and blue jig. So we're gonna take the 6-inch lizard, again in real dark color, so hopefully they can find it in the water. We know these fish are spawning because they've already milted all over my beautiful Ranger boat. So a lizard is one of the natural enemies of a spawning bass, so we're gonna see how that works for us as well. So we've made our way around the pond a little bit, and we're looking for deep water. We're looking for access to deep water. We figured out the pond is extremely shallow. Pretty much everywhere we go, we found one little channel right off the bat, and where the inlet comes in, and sure enough, it had a bunch of fish on it. So now we're kind of working around. Now we're at the dam end of the lake, and we're looking to see where there's some water depth along here. So paying real close attention. The deepest water we've seen is 5 feet in the whole lake. So we're looking for very small differences in water depth, and I think that really will make the key to help us find fish. Now you get two guys. We're on a 21-foot boat. This boat's 21 feet, 3 inches long, 8 feet wide. And you got two guys sharing the front 3 feet. Yeah. But that's because we're fishing very cover specific. Slide back.
It's actually, it's just because I really like you.
He just wants to dance. See, Troy just really wants to dance with me just a little bit. That's his whole deal. And as you can see, we got a big time storm blowing back in. And we've looked around quite a bit of the lake just on the trolling motor. And what we found is that this is the only real defined channel on the lake. And so we're gonna spend some time plumbing that channel and see what else we can come up with. Now, on an old school bass fishing like this, it's all about the heavy equipment. Troy and I, between us, we've got either 15, 17-pound fluorocarbon, depending on the couple of rods we fished, and I've got 50-pound tracer braid on this rod here. I have no leader on my tracer braid like we normally do on Fishful Thinker, and the reason I don't is this water is very off-colored. I'm not at any level worried about fish seeing my line, nor am I worried about a treble hook situation where they're tangling with the line, since I have a Texas rig 6-inch power lizard on here. So it's really more about having the power to get fish out of the cover, not so much about the giant fish we're doing, the giant fish we're hoping to catch here. These off-colored water conditions you'll find in eastern Colorado. You'll find them certainly in some areas of Utah and some of those bass lakes as well. Anywhere in Kansas, Nebraska is a very common place to find this kind of muddy water like this. Early in the spring, you know, a little bit of color in the water, not a bad thing. Soaks up sun. Not muddy, I don't want pure mud. I just want some kind of cover in the water. So when we got here and we put the boat in the water, 60, 62, 63 degree water, that tells us right away that there's bass up and probably spawning. And largemouth particularly will come up and spawn. In that temperature range, we'd fully expect them here in central Kansas to be doing that. Now, the thing that means to me is we need to go to sheltered banks, to some degree sheltered banks anyway, not areas that the wind's gonna necessarily blast on all day. Would you agree with that, Troy?
Oh yeah. Yeah, fish don't want to be shallow. These bass in this muddy water, they're going to spawn in less than 3 feet of water.
In sheltered banks.
And they don't want to be buffeted around by big waves rolling in on them or anything like that. They're probably going to be more on the north side, simply because that'll protect them from that cold north wind, and that north side warms up faster. and they're gonna be in sheltered coves, little finger coves, areas off of the main lake for the most part. What we have found in this lake is there is a lot of non-productive water, a lot of real shallow water.
A lot of real shallow water. And why is that important? Because we're catching fish in real shallow water too. It's important because there's no access to deep water. A lot of this lake is flat and shallow. We didn't know that until we got here. We fired up the Lowrance with the structure scan, drove around the lake and looked at a little bit of it on the trolling motor. It all appears to be very shallow without any real major changes in depth. So what we're doing is concentrate on this one inlet right here. And the reason is it's got a distinct channel in it, and that's a good way for us to pin down and locate fish. There's probably fish all over the lake. This gives us an easier place to pinpoint where they might be and catch them.
Yeah, when they winter out in the deepest water in a lake like this, which is only about 10 feet deep.
Yeah, this is an important thing to keep in mind, folks, is I've tried to mix it up from Troy today, and they've been on that jig bite since we got here. We didn't fish 5 minutes and Troy got bit on that jig. And so I've tried to mix it up, and by doing that, I've actually tried to learn some other things. What I've learned is that they really like that jig because they've bit that black and blue jig with the power trailer, the blue power trailer on it. They've bit that bait real good, and they haven't bit anything else. There's been nothing else that's actually been bit at all. I threw a spinner bait, I threw a lipless crankbait, I threw a little rattle trap. I've thrown this big 6-inch lizard as well, which I think would be an excellent call. Doesn't seem to be getting it done though. So here, as we run out of time, I may switch back to the jig and see what else we can come up with. But they definitely seem to like that jig the best. One of the absolute keys to this kind of fishing is accurate casts, patient hook sets. Very, very important.
I can't resist anymore. I gotta do it.
Dude, if that thing gets bit, I'm gonna love it.
What's all the activity up there? What is that?
It's gotta be carp or any flowing water. Yeah, I'd like to see one eat that thing, actually. I really would. Now that's another spring favorite bait of mine as well, as a buzz bait. I actually threw one for a few minutes when we first got here, but it just didn't feel right to me. And I fished by the seat of my pants and it just didn't feel right. But conditions have changed a lot. We've been here about an hour and a half now, or an hour, I guess. And they have definitely changed up a little bit. So. Now one thing I'd expect, and tell me if you'd agree with this, Troy, with this new cloud cover and this wind, would you expect that some of these fish would actually leave some of the heavy cover or loosen up from it just a little bit and roam a little more?
You know what, in clear water, yeah. In dirty water, not so much.
Okay.
Not so much. The way I like to think about the fish in muddy waters, like you being in a dark room, the first thing you're going to do if you're in a dark room is you're going to look for a wall or something so that you can have something to relate to. What fish are the same?
What I'm fixing to do is reach for a raincoat.
Yeah.
Because we're on a straight up Kansas spring storm. I just hung my lizard. I got it back. That's the beauty of your 50-pound braid. You just give it the onion and get it back. Picking apart heavy cover like this, the one thing that's important is casting angles, all kinds of different casting angles. You know, it could be just as important that your angle, that your jig come by a piece of cover at the right angle or drops right in on it, just the right thing. It could be more important than the bait itself in a lot of cases. I could bomb a red jig or a blue jig or a green jig in there if it bombed right on them and hit them right. But if you get the wrong angle or you don't get it on the right piece of cover, it won't matter. Very cover specific in the springtime, especially in the dirty water like this. Very cover specific.
Oh, that looks really good.
Yeah,
right there.
I knew you were looking at that. See how he is? He's looking right at that. The other thing is you can't be afraid to throw your bait into crazy stuff. I mean, if you want to break baits off or you want to get fish, you got to be not afraid to break a bait off every now and then to do that. And nobody likes to break baits off, but we all like to catch fish. Here it comes.
That's not good.
Now you folks can see that our time here on Fishful Thinker is once again going to get cut short by the weather, and that seems to happen to us a lot these days. Now it doesn't matter if we're in Kansas or Utah or Colorado or Wyoming, somehow if you need a drought in your town or if you have a drought in your town, you need rain, you call us and we'll come on over. We hadn't been fishing but an hour. We ain't got very much time on this pond, and And our time's fixing to get cut short because I'm not going to get caught in a lightning storm out on this lake. I don't even know the name of this little lake here, and you'll know. We'll call it Lake X, but this is not the lake I want to get struck by lightning on. So
I'd rather not get struck by lightning on any lake, personally.
No, I think not. So with this big spring storm blowing in, you can hear rooster pheasants cackling all around us. We've seen turkeys all around us as well. When you get pheasants cackling and turkeys up and doing their thing, it's a safe bet there's bass spawning as well. If you don't have electronics to tell you temperature, when the trees are starting to green good, holy smoke, swing them in the boat, why don't you? Holy cow. Now, that's a beautiful fish right there. Now, Troy, I've got, and this Ranger boat has a big compartment here, and we store diapers for them little ones like that.
There you go. You want to kiss that one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Wee wee. Probably gonna get me for some kind of crazy baby fish law. Nice hook set though, good solid hook set, well, beautiful fish. Go ahead and put that one back. I know you've caught bigger than that. That's a good point. You don't know how big they are till you set them.
Away.
Fish?
Yep.
Fish right here. Out from underneath the dock. Oh, it's a nice one too. That's why you fish around the boat ramps right there, guys. That's why you fish around the boat ramps. Beautiful fish. Troy, got your rod? You got him?
There you go.
Ay, caramba, buddy. Nicely done.
Way to finish the day, huh?
Well, that's why you fish around boat ramps. Now, we maybe go out and fish a little bit more, but that's a really tough deal right there. Now, Troy, that's got to be a good spot. I think we got to end the show there. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you guys watching. We're back at the boat ramp. Troy just caught a really nice fish. Well done, Mr. Coburn. That's why he's the bass master. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. That's classic bass fishing right there.
That's it, brother. Last minute heroics.
Last minute heroics. Mike Iaconelli would be yelling something about not giving up. Oh. Good Lord, cross his eyes. Holy smokes. What was that, dude? Ay, caramba, folks. Now let me tell you, that's what you call a monster hook set. When you snatch them out of the lake and throw them over the boat, that's too much hook set. This is what you do when you're fishing heavy cover right here. You got two pros, all hook. I missed him, sorry. Holy crap, dude, I almost got you.